Welcome to week 8 of virtual learning. This is the last week of work or content in this class, and it should be in most of your classes. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that will be the case. Definitely check your other classes and modules to see what the plan is going forward, but it is week 8. Next week is week 9. This week in debate, we are focusing on reflection. We've done all this work. You guys have come to understand what bills and resolutions are. You've gone through the congressional database and looked at different pieces of legislation. You've interpreted that legislation. You've written about the legislation. You have read what your peers have said about that legislation. And you have had conversations via the discussion board as much as you can, because it's a virtual discussion board, about those pieces of legislation and sort of interrogating each other's arguments. So I hope that a number of you found it really enjoyable to dig into that legislation. I know some of you did, because I could tell through your writing how passionate you were about whatever you chose. I hope for those of you where it wasn't quite your thing, you feel like you walked away maybe with better argumentation skills, maybe with just heightened critical thinking skills. Maybe you just now know what a bill is, and you understand how to read one and the role bills play in their lawmaking process. So I hope we all can walk away from this quarter in debate feeling like we have gained something. But in this week, we want to focus on reflection, because reflecting is something that we're going to continue to do here at your time, or during your time at Sci-High, and it's something that you're definitely going to continue to do as you move on in life into more professional roles. Reflection is something that all of us teachers do. I mean, we do it every week when we get your work back. We're always reflecting on what it meant for us to assign you something and what sort of results that produced, and maybe how well my instructions were, how people were able to understand my instructions or not understand my instructions, and then I'm reflecting on that and then using that information to reconsider how I'm going to do things going forward. And so today, or rather this week, we're going to be focusing on reflection. There is a really short article from the Harvard Business Review on self-reflection, particularly as it pertains to leaders and people in leadership. It's written by an executive leadership coach, and they wrote this article that talks about why reflection is so important, especially for leaders and especially in the business world. And I think every single one of you has leadership skills, whether or not you feel them present yet, or whether we're gonna slowly pull them out of you over the next 3-4-ish years. But we are all leaders. We all lead in some capacity in our lives. And so to be able to reflect on what we're doing and how that impacts the people we surround ourselves with is really, really important. So we are going to reflect in particular on this quarter. You're going to read this week that Harvard Business Review article. It's really short. It says it is 5 pages or 6 pages, but it's really only 3, and it's like pretty large font. So that's just the way it PDF'd when I saved it. It's not a really long article. A lot of it is in a list format, so a lot of it is pretty skimmable. So I want you guys to look at that. Your quiz this week is just going to be one simple question: why is reflection important? But I want you to have read that article so that you can think about reflection in the context that the article is thinking of it in. So in a context that's more related to a professional setting. So then I want you to answer that question in the quiz. But your assignment this week is you're gonna have 2 options. Both are reflection options. But your first option is going to allow you to be a little bit more creative and maybe not just focus on this class in particular, but just the entire quarter overall. So for your first reflection option, you are going to choose a quote. It could be by a person, from a book, from a song, wherever it might come from. You're going to choose a quote that you think really represents or encapsulates, summarizes, exemplifies your experience this quarter. I will have an example up in the assignment of both of these options, but you want to pick a quote that you feel like really, when you read it, you're like, wow, that represents my experience this quarter. And then I want you to explain how that how that connects to your experience in the quarter, why that quote resonates with you. And in doing that, we're really doing the work that reflection wants us to do, which is to sort through our experiences and our observations and make connections that we might not have seen before and create meaning out of those experiences. So when you're sitting there and thinking about how you felt this past quarter and you're looking for a quote and then you're explaining to me how that quote is representative of your experience, you yourself are also creating new meaning out of that experience in and of itself. So that is the first option. The second option is going to be to simply reflect on a belief or an opinion that changed for you this quarter. So we all worked on different bills or resolutions, and last week you were able to read through some of your peers' work. And what I want you to do this week is think back to either your own bill or maybe someone else's bill that you read about. And if you had a belief change, or maybe just a perspective, or maybe you read something that you just hadn't really considered and it didn't change your mind, but it did give you pause, it did make you think a little bit about your own feelings on whatever it was, then you're gonna write about that. We're gonna reflect on how your feelings on something might have changed this quarter. And so then you wanna talk about what in particular made it change, why you think it changed, how that impacts what you see in regards to that topic going forward. So those are your two options. So you're either reflecting on the quarter as a whole, and you can be a little bit more creative. You're just gonna pull a quote and just kind of explain why this quote represents how you felt about this last quarter, or any new realizations you made, or how you grew as a person, whatever it might be. Or you can choose to focus more specifically on our class and just reflect on how you have changed in regards to your beliefs, or maybe just your ability to empathize with some other people's perspectives. So those are gonna be your two options. They're gonna be really brief. You know, it doesn't have to be longer than a paragraph. A paragraph is gonna be around 5 sentences. So if you're doing the quote, you know, that includes putting your quote in there and then writing a short little paragraph about it, or just reflecting on this class in particular and just writing a paragraph on that, and then answering that quiz question, which is, why is reflection so important? And remember, you want to read that Harvard Business Review article, and then you will be done with week 8, and then you will be done with the quarter for debate. Next week in week 9, that's our last week of school, that is just going to be a makeup catch-up week. If you feel really overwhelmed, I've said this almost every week, but if you feel really overwhelmed and you really don't know where to start or where to begin, reach out to me. I will be reaching out to some of you, and we will figure out how we can make sure that you feel really successful this quarter and that you still walk away meeting those outcomes that I set out for you guys, because I think they're so important for you to walk away with by the end of this school year. So make sure you jump into one of our WebEx calls where we will chat a little bit more about this, maybe even share what we're working on. And that is on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 a.m. I have advisement later in the day on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so always feel free to jump in that. If you have a question that really needs answering, you can email me, you can text or call the Google Voice number as well. Okay, good luck.